I don't need the gun, John. I can beat you. I don't need no gun. I'm going to kill you now. Yep. This week, Rob and I will be taking a look back at the 1985 action classic Commando, a movie that, unlike, say, Predator, which I'd argue is an objectively brilliant movie, is one that, well, let's just say that it's more than the sum of its individual parts. One that, despite not being technically all that good, somehow remains one of the most watchable and downright enjoyable movies of the decade. I mean, it's one of those strange ones, isn't it? I think it's got a unique alchemy to it. Like, I think if you watch this film for the first time and it doesn't work for you, you could make the argument that it's actually quite a bad movie. But for some odd reason, it works. And I don't want to use the term action masterpiece, but I mean, there's nothing else like Commando. There's nothing else quite like it, is there?
No. Well, firstly, welcome to the Hey You Guys podcast.
Oh, yeah, that. So I get so excited.
Secondly, mate, honestly, I have more notes for this film than I had for Buckaroo Banzai last week. Like, as I'm rewatching this film, this, as you said, as you've already said, action masterpiece. Like, this film is turned up to 11, to quote Spinal Tap. It is, it's insane.
Even amongst array of, obviously, this is peak 80s action film. This came out the same year as Rambo: First Blood Part 2.
Was that a nod to Ray Dawn Chong, by the way?
What's that?
Was that a nod to Ray Dawn Chong?
No, I don't think so.
When you said as a Ray.
Oh, God, Jesus Christ.
That joke's
Oh, yeah, sorry, it went right over my head. It's not a joke, that's my bad. I should be better.
You should.
But even amongst, like, the, just as we're kind of really gearing up into absurd 80s action movies, I still think this stands proudly as the most absurd of them all. I think when people, there are better. I mean, I've already mentioned one. As I said, I can tell somebody, not everyone agrees with me, but I feel like I can make an objective argument for why Predator's a fantastic movie, and it's, it does what it does better than any other film. This film doesn't do, it's not particularly well acted. I'm not convinced, other than Arnie, it's particularly well cast. The action scenes aren't actually all that. There's some great stunts, but I don't think it's kind of top tier action. But for some odd reason, it all comes together and just works.
You do have a lot of fun with this film. It is fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. And as a kid growing up and you're watching this film, it's really weird because so many people die, mainly by Annie's hand, but also, like, aside from a couple of, like, I guess, throat slits and top of somebody's head being sawn off after he had
well, it was all straight after the garden shed shit,
Yeah, a lot of the guys died by being shot with a magic gun. Do you know what I mean? Or just grenades shooting over their heads and stuff. So,
well, yeah, it's a weird thing because supposedly 109 people die in this film.
Yeah, how many by Annie? I've got that one. How many by Annie? 102 are killed by Arnie. Most, in fairness, so what? That leaves 7 people not killed by Arnie. That's nearly all in the opening sequence, which I got to be honest, I forgot was a thing. Like, when I think of the start of this film, I just think of Arnie carrying a tree. Yeah.
So I totally forgot about the squad going around and killing the rest of his team.
That's fine then. So can we get to that part? Because I got some notes about that part. The squad fighting.
First, I've just got a question. Like, he's 109 kills. Like, 107 by him. I mean, are we saying those are confirmed kills? Because there are a few where I'm like, I don't think that guy's dead. I think anyone he injures, people are immediately writing off as dead. But
there's a lot of guys where a grenade blew up maybe 10 feet behind them, and they jumped and did like a triple Lindy in the air and then landed. Yeah. I've got a feeling they're not dead. Maybe a bit maimed. Yeah.
And I suspect that a lot of those guys, especially, let's be clear, of those 102 people that he kills, 98% of those are in the last 10 minutes of this film, essentially.
Well, I really want to talk about the squad dying at the beginning, but the one thing I want, when you get to like you said about all the guys dying in the last 10 minutes, the one that really sticks out to me is the first guy that dies. Well, no, I'm sorry, not the first. When Annie makes his presence known, you've got the guy in the watchtower who starts shooting at Annie. Annie shoots him. The guy gets shot, takes the time to turn left
Yeah.
And fall to the other side of the watchtower before the watchtower explodes. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's another one of those examples of when you see that. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to get into it in the final 15 or so minutes of this film, and obviously we'll get there eventually. But right from like the word go, a lot of the cracks show in this film. You know, it's not. There's a reason if you look back at the director's work. I mean, what is it? Mark L. Lester. Other than Firestarter, which he made before this, which is based on the Stephen King novel, and I guess Showdown in Little Tokyo, the Brandon Lee and Dolph Lundgren film.
I love that film.
And again, I mean, love, yeah, but that's also not a classic. But those are the only two which stand out in his CV.
Yeah.
This guy's not a great director. This movie works largely because of Arnie. In fairness, it's got a pretty decent script, as ridiculous as it is.
It wasn't going to be Arnie, was it?
No, it wasn't. There was some interesting choices before. Was it Gene Simmons? It was initially
Gene Simmons, but the one that stands out for me is Nick Nolte. Nick Nolte.
Well, they both stand out, but dude, Gene Simmons has to stand out. I mean, Gene Simmons from Kiss, what the fuck was he going to be doing in this?
Gene Simmons is coming off the back of Runaway in 1985. Runaway was 1984, I think.
This was 85, so yeah.
84. Runaway was 84, so Runaway was the robot spiders. So Gene Simmons was coming off the back of that as the villain.
Yeah. Well, maybe it would have worked, but I mean, I make the argument that Nick Nolte, it is an odd choice, like you say. Now I imagine Nick Nolte running around, and we're thinking Nick Nolte, a couple of years after 48 Hours?
Yeah,
I mean, Nick Nolte's never looked in shape. He's never looked in shape. And Arnie, nobody's ever looked more in shape.
And that's why I want to get to the beginning, right? I mean, we'll get to the fact that Bennett is meant to be his equal, and we'll get to all of that in a second.
Bennett giving Arnie shit for being over the hill, which is just one of my favorite things in movie history. It's just unbelievable.
The other two guys, because you see three people get killed. You see the guy get killed bringing the bins down, and the other guy get run over.
Yeah.
Both don't look like they were special soldiers, to be fair.
Well, I think you're unfairly comparing them to Arnie. Nobody looks like Arnie. Like that is the thing with Arnie. He's just, I mean, he's not long become Mr. Olympia for the 5th time.
Yeah.
Like that is the problem. There's nobody you can put next to Arnie who looks like Arnie in 1985. But then, in fairness, they haven't even given it a go with Bennett, have they?
Oh my God! So first of all, Bennett did not need to die or fake his death. There was no reason for Bennett to fake his death. And they even said, we faked Bennett's death to lure the general to come and find you. But they obviously knew where he was anyway, because they're not following a helicopter and setting up all those guys to attack Matrix. So they already knew where Matrix was. Mm-hmm. All they had to do was kill
It's a confusing start, because obviously, like you say, you've got to take it from the perspective, if you've never seen this film before, you're just seeing a bunch of random people get killed and I do enjoy the deaths. Like the run when he gets run over in the car, I'm just not convinced that he's not necessarily killed him. Like don't get me wrong, he looks dead when he's on the floor, but running over somebody in a Cadillac from 3 foot away, I'm just like, if I was driving away, I wouldn't feel confident that I'd killed him. I just wouldn't. Maybe he just wanted to steal a Cadillac, because he steals that Cadillac and then later on shows up in a different Cadillac. So maybe he just loves Cadillac. Yeah. But in fairness, he does make up for it when he rocks up with the dustbin dude. That's obviously not his name. Yeah. But like, he puts an almost absurd amount of bullets into that guy. Like, he really wants that guy to die. Yeah. It's like he goes to the two extremes. The first guy, I would argue, he hasn't done nearly enough to confirm the kill. With the second guy, it's almost like, fuck, I got lucky with that first guy. But this guy, I'm putting 60 bullets in this motherfucker. I'm going to make sure he's dead.
When he blows up Bennett's boat, the remote that he uses, I know it's the 80s, best. But that remote is massive. It is so wide.
It looks like it blows up bombs, but also just happens to control Johnny 5. Yeah. It's like that big. It's a ridiculous. But yeah, to come back to your point, you don't know who Bennett is at the start, and then
because they don't say his name or anything like that. And if
they blow up the boat, and you're just like, wait, so did they just because they have like a wry smile, like they know each other, but then he blows up the boat. It's like, well, what's the deal there?
If it was a third act kind of thing, like Bennett rocked up in the third act and goes, "Here I am, You know, I'm the one who's
surprise.
Okay, but then Bennett shows up like literally 10 minutes later, if that, and says, "Oh, it was me. I shot you with tranquilizers." Also showing up must have been sent chainmail armor by his nan. Or it's chilly out there in California. Let me knit you a chainmail vest. Because
that is the thing. I was watching it with my wife, and she was just like, "Why is he wearing a knitted vest?" Yeah. She thought it was like a Vin Diesel style thing from Fast 9. I'm not sure if you remember.
I haven't seen Fast 9 yet.
Oh, well, Vin Diesel wears an absolutely spectacular sleeveless knitted T-shirt, or knitted tank top, I guess you'd call it in Fast 9, which is just unbelievable. And it's a little bit like that. But I had to explain to Beth, like, no, I'm pretty sure it's actually chainmail. And she wasn't having it. And she was like, no, it's knitted. I was like, okay, it's knitted out of metal at the very least. But his whole getup is something else. And it really does play into his whole homoerotic thing he's got going on, which again, isn't a problem. We can have a homoerotic villain. But like everything else in this movie, it is fucking weird. There's just no two ways about it.
He's also reminding me of like a 90s business dad who... Oh, no, not 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, I'm guessing then, who had the belt with the phone on the outside of your belt, you know, in that case. Yeah. Because he's got all his stuff on the belt, but because he's got his chainmail vest tucked in under the belt.
Yeah, and it's not just that. That leads right into leather pants. He's got the fingerless gloves. And then, if not enough metal, he's got like a big metal necklace, and he's got a big 80s... again, quite homosexual moustache. I mean, I'm not sure if the moustache is, deemed a homosexual facial thing. But you know what I mean? Oh, God, that didn't work as a sentence.
Nope.
But you know what I mean. In the 80s, like, it was just a look, I think. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But needless to say, he just looks great. And obviously, he doesn't actually spend much time on screen with Arnie or Matrix, whatever you want to call him. But that whole scene at the end, I mean, man, he is keen. Yeah. I mean, he wants to kill him, but all that stuff, let's party, put it inside me, all that stuff. Yeah. Jesus wept. It's hardly subtle, is it?
Let's save the ending for a little bit later on, because we're going to jump all over. And
we are.
So and we've got a lot of stuff at the beginning. Because what I wanted, after you had the deaths of his team, and just before the general comes to see Matrix, you then have the introduction of John and his daughter, Alyssa Milano. What was her name in the film?
Jenny. He says it about 1 million times. He's always doing it for Jenny. Oh, I've got to say, sorry to butt in, just while you're on the Alyssa Milano thing. It's like, how much does she look like 11 from Stranger Things in this?
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. Like the hair, obviously the clothes because it's the 80s. But Alyssa Milano does look like a young Millie Bobby Brown. Like she really does. Like she looks like season 3, 11. It's almost uncanny. I just couldn't believe it. Like I've seen that film so many times, but I obviously haven't seen it since I've seen Stranger Things. And as soon as it came out, I was like, Jesus Christ, it just looks like 11 in the movie. But
Annie rocks up with the tree.
Yeah, see, I feel like you're glossing over that.
No. All right, we'll get back to the tree. The fact,
okay,
I want to talk about his life with Jenny for a minute.
Oh, it's magical.
But you've got the music playing, and it's really weird because they look like 80s credits. Obviously, they are 80s credits, but an 80s sitcom credit about a single dad raising his daughter, because you've got the little fake smiles, they're looking at the screen.
Ice cream, deers.
Jenny doesn't walk anywhere. Whenever you see Jenny, Arnie's holding her like she's nothing. But what I really wanted to get, we will get back to the fact of the tree, but was it just me watching this film? Did it feel a little bit creepy every time he kissed her on the lips?
It did a little bit, right? I am not one of these people. I always... because I remember David Beckham got in trouble for it.
It's nothing to do. It's not kiss your kid on the lips, whatever. I'm not.
No, that's the thing. I don't think there should be an issue with that. But there's something about the way Arnie kisses her on the lips. So I'm just like.
And is it because I know? And look, I'm not trying to say anything bad about Arnie and an underage girl. I'm not. But what I'm saying, it just feels creepy.
The thing is, it shouldn't, because. One of the things, despite Arnie's real-life reputation, he, kind of like The Rock, I suppose, is cinematically almost asexual. And I think it's because he's so big and muscular that he's hardly given a relationship, and even if he is, it's really anything close to being sexual. And I think it's because, again, it's that size difference. It's almost like you put him next to any woman, and it's like they're from a different species. It's like turning onto the History Channel and suddenly seeing a bear fuck a deer. It would just be odd. Like, he's just too massive. And again, it's the same issue with The Rock. Like, he has love interests in films, but it never gets beyond first base because nobody wants to see The Rock having sex with him. It would just be gross.
I'm not trying to talk about any sexual or anything like that. For some reason, the father-daughter kiss on the lips just felt creepy to me, and I tell
you the reason. It's nothing to do with Arnie as a person. What it is the fact that fundamentally, and especially in 1985, despite the fact that he is great in this movie in his own unique way, he's quite a terrible actor. So you never buy him as her father. So instead, you're just watching a grown man kiss a young girl on the lips, and there's obviously nothing weird about it, but you never buy him as her dad. So it's just a very large man kissing a very young girl on the lips. So it's a bit strange.
I felt like real Arnie came out a little bit as well when they're talking on a dinner table and he's going, "Why are they calling him Boy George? Why not Girl George or anything like that?" It felt like that's something that Arnie has said in real life.
Oh, 100%. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he said he should put that in. Like, he saw it in the magazine. He's like, "Oh, look, it's Boy George." And you're just like, "Okay, dude. Well, like, you have that one line, but just rein it in a little bit, buddy, you know?"
Yeah.
But, 80s politics, these things were allowed.
Go back. Come on. I know you want to. Let's go back to the fact that Arnie just carries a tree.
Well, yeah, he does just carry a tree for no other reason than to say, look, Arnie's fucking awesome. And also, like you said, the start doesn't necessarily make sense, but Arnie's introduction is so effective that you essentially forget what's happened. As I said at the top of this podcast, I forgot about that entire intro sequence. I thought this film started with Arnie carrying a tree. So it's almost as if to say, as soon as you kind of like, wait a minute, does that make any sense? Oh, wait a minute, is Arnie carrying a fucking tree? Yes, he is. And it's like the close-ups and everything. They do like, not a close-up on one bicep, 3 seconds. Now you're getting the other bicep, another 3. They spend a lot of time on his boots, which in fairness are quite nice boots. And then, of course, it is, I mean, I've said before, peak Arnie, I still think is Predator. But I mean, goddamn, he looks the absolute business in this role. He's such a beast.
I mean, again, and I know we're jumping everywhere and we'll go back, but we've already talked about how jacked he is. There was no point whatsoever in Arnie in a Speedo getting out of the plane and getting into the rubber dinghy to row, because as he's rowing, his bloody pecs.
Oh, they're bouncing.
Oh my God, yes. They
are bouncing.
So I had a question.
Well, this film does.
I had a question about that.
Oh, yeah.
Did he have that Speedo on under his trousers the whole day? Mm-hmm. Or did he get the Speedo out of the army surplus store and just decide to take all his clothes off and put a Speedo on?
I have to assume that he took the Speedos. Like, he took everything else. Like, the amount of stuff they take from that army surplus store is outrageous. I mean, it's great that they actually show it. Like, you think usually they'd go and they'd pick up a few guns and then it goes to the scene with him on the beach. But no, they show the scene when, is it Cindy?
Yeah, was it Cindy? Why am I forgetting that now?
I don't want to tell you that I'm making things up. It is, yes.
Cindy. It is Cindy.
Yeah. You literally see that bit when she's like holding like the grenade or the rocket launcher, whatever it is, on the top of a trolley, and it's absolutely packed to the top. And you do actually notice in that scene when she's pulling out the trolley, she even does take the instructions to the rocket launcher. She says later on, it's like, "Oh, how did you learn to do that?" She's like, "I read the instructions," and she actually did. She took it with her. So I'm going to say that he took the Speedos from the army surplus store, surely. I mean, he had like the little vest and everything. He was prepared. He was fully prepared.
So she's flying a plane in typical movie fashion. She's had a couple of lessons, and now.
Well, the liberties taken to get the plot moving towards the end of this film are pretty outrageous. But again, we'll get to those later. But I mean, the tree is just the start of an array of what I can only describe as classic Arnie shows of strength. Like, this film in particular was like, all right, this guy's an absolute beast. We're just going to show him doing strong shit. Like, he has the tree carrying. He lifts about 8 cars in this film, as far as I can tell. He's always lifting cars. He overpowers 12 mall cops, which, again, is a scene we'll get to. No mall in history has had that many goddamn mall cops. He breaks metal locks with his hands. I mean, and again, the final scene, you almost let it go because of the quip and the fact that it's all kind of fun. He throws a metal pipe through a man's chest from about 10 yards.
Not just through a man's chest, mind, but he also has enough force, and I wrote this down, I'd love to know the force, to pierce a guy's chest, a body, for it to be a through and through, and to go through a metal tank for the steam to come out.
Yeah. It's something else. It is something else. I mean, he's almost got Fast and Furious levels of strength in this film. Like, it is that kind of borderline. But yeah, so you get the whole Arnie thing, the setup. They've got the great house. You know, he's like the biggest man in the world. And then the plot kind of kicks in pretty quickly, actually, from there, doesn't it?
Yeah, because obviously then she's kidnapped and he has to go to Santa Verde or something like that. Valverde, sorry.
That's obviously it's a fake island off the west coast of the United States. But that's the place which links this to Predator and Die Hard, isn't it? Yeah, because it's a fictional island mentioned in all those films. And like, I was trying to get my head around where it is, because it's obviously just off the west coast, off like Santa Barbara, which is California, and it doesn't look like it's very far. So it's almost like a kind of secondary Cuba, but much closer to the mainland. But
he's got to go to Valverde. But the ex-president.
Yeah.
What was his name?
It was
Arrayas, played by Dan Hedaya. They're in another random little island, aren't they? Like the island he was exiled to or something, because he wasn't in Valverde, he was somewhere else. So so they're kidnapped and Arnie sent to Valverde with, once again, and I know you're saying don't compare them to Arnie, but everyone else in this film it's like the guys that the mercenaries that Bennett and Arrayas have hired. You've got Sully, played wonderfully by David Patrick Kelly, who's
great, but he's about 4'7".
David Patrick Kelly from The Crow. I will always love him in The Crow.
I always think of The Warriors.
Warriors,
he's just good at being a nasty piece of work.
As T-Bird in The Crow, I always love him for that. But David Patrick Kelly, like Sully, and then you've got Bill Duke as well as Cook.
He's the only one. Like, I know he's not like cut like Arnie, but he's physically imposing. He is, you know.
The guy on the plane might have been physically imposing, but he just looked like somebody who was on holiday anyway. I mean, let's get
past that. Is that oh God, what's his name? I didn't write down his name, but he died very poorly, to say the least.
Henriquez.
Oh, Enriquez. Yeah, that was the character's name.
With a silent H or however you do it at the beginning. But I mean, I'm a fan of Out There shirts, so I was a big fan of his shirt. But
I mean, that was some 80s shit.
He looked like they grabbed a homeless guy for a shirt and a blazer on him and just said, "Do me a favor, sit next to Arnie on the plane."
Yeah, and he's got that weird straw hat thing going on, and he, like you said, he's one of the few people. He's a big guy, but he makes so many. I mean, he gets on the plane. He allows Arnie to have the aisle seat. Terrible error. Surely you make him sit by the window. And then he's like, oh, yeah, he's just chatting away. He wants a blanket and all sorts. It's like, yeah, no problem. You know, we're in economy, but we'll enjoy it together.
Terrible errors. Let's go terrible. Just in the plane alone, let's go terrible errors, right? So not only, like you said, he let him sit on the aisle plane. They're about to take off. The stewardess lets the big, large man go to the toilet because, I quote, I'm airsick. Do you know what I mean?
He delivers that so deadpan. I was like, is he trying to be funny? Yeah. I'm airsick. And then he just wanders off.
And then, do they not wonder for the next 11 hours where he is? Do you know what I mean? He's in the toilet for 11 hours.
This is the 80s. Anything goes.
Go on about the drop at the minute, but I just want to stick to the plane for a second. When the plane finally lands in Valverde, and you find a dead body, and the guy that maybe did it is not on the plane anymore, even though all the doors were shut, do you let all the other passengers off the plane to go and enjoy their holiday?
Yeah, it's again, I mean, I know we explain a lot of these things by saying, it's the 80s. That's lax even by 80 standards, and you can't even blame it on landing in Valverde. I mean, you could say, oh well, maybe it's a third world thing going on, but it's still full of like tourists. Like they can't just let everyone just roll off when there's been a murder, and he's quite clearly been murdered. He's not like, oh, this guy's just like passed away. He's had his neck broken.
When they pull the Valverde scouts, should we say, pull the blanket over his face, the blood there is pissed out of his nose and just dried. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How nobody
he looks quite the state.
After 11 hours as well, are they not thinking, wow, this guy has not... Like, even when you sleep, if you sleep for 11 hours, that's great. Mm-hmm. But you're going to move. You're going to have a little twitch, a little move.
I mean, I don't know the science of that. I mean, how long is it before you... Because he kills him immediately. Immediately, he's dead. Then it's an 11-hour flight. Like... At some point, does smell start to become an issue?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know timings and all for that. But nobody else turned around because Arnie elbowed him to the face. That was a loud noise because he flew back, bounced off because they're like sat right at the back. So he bounced off, and he grabs him, and nobody's just going, "What the fuck was that?"
I got a funny feeling it's that whole thing. When you most people don't want to get involved in especially when they're giant men, like those two huge guys get on. Both of them look pretty, serious business. And, you hear like a snap or something like, oh, that's pretty weird. Like, imagine most people's like, don't turn around. It's like, some guy's wife, Janet, she's about, oh, what was that, Dave? It's like, do not turn around. Do not look at them. Janet, no, look forwards. Read your book, Janet. For God's sake. That is the conversation I imagine someone having.
In this day and age, she'd be Karen, wouldn't she?
Oh, Karen, yeah, Karen. We'll go with Karen instead. That's much better.
So you're on the plane then, right? And then Arnie manages to find his way down to the landing.
You're forgetting his most, one of the great... Again, this film has so many great one-liners, and it all starts with he's dead tired.
Oh, yeah.
My
Sorry,
friend,
he's dead tired.
He's dead tired.
So he delivers that great, because I just couldn't get past the I'm airsick ploy.
I actually think that's the underrated line in the film, because we all think of he's dead tired, let us some steam Bennett. But the way when she asks him and he just holds his stomach, I'm airsick. It's just amazing how he delivers that line. And then absolute gold.
He drops 100 feet, maybe more.
It's a great. It's one of a few actually. As we've said, some of the direction in this film isn't fantastic. A lot of it's ludicrous, but there's some brilliant stunts in this film. And one of them starts obviously with this plane jump, because I know how it was done. They recreated the wheel of the plane and they attached it to the side of a camera truck and drove it along. But when you see Arnie on it, it looks legit. It's only when you stop it, it's like, wait a minute, how the hell did that work?
Right up until the drop point. Because when they drop...
Even the drop, I thought the drop was okay.
A
lot of them use... Sorry.
It looks like the wind's caught him and he's going far off distance. And then it cuts back to Arnie, who must have just jumped in the air before they filmed him and then landed on the marsh.
Yeah. And plus, when he gets out of the marsh, he dries up pretty quick. Yes, and although it was... What it reminded me of was a kind of precursor to Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible. He jumps off a plane, he lands in the water, and the first thing he does is just run. And there's no real reason to show us that running scene other than Arnie just looks good running.
Well, actually, before he runs, because I wanted to bring this up, because Arnie trying to be stealth in a few of the places, apparently he's not getting away with a lot of stealth. Because before he runs, he sets 11 hours on his watch, right? Mm-hmm. The loudest fucking beeps for every second.
Yeah, they were loud. Yeah, they were. Beep, beep. Yeah. It sounded like a kind of 60s Bond movie countdown.
Yeah.
10 seconds to explosion. Beep, beep.
Yeah. So that's happening.
Your watch can't be that fucking loud.
That's happening for 11 hours, apparently.
Yeah, it did feel a little bit dramatic to me. Jesus Christ.
And then obviously he gets to the airport. He finds Sully, who is like a horn dog. She's on the phone. And
he's the worst. She is
on the phone.
Nasty. And
he is just staring. Oh my God. Yeah, sorry. Because we will get to the mall. But the fact when he's talking to that dude who gives him the passports and he goes, this used to be a great place to pick up Slash.
Yeah. And even it's she clearly isn't interested. He walks out of the airport, follows her all the way down to a car, only to call her a fucking whore. Yeah. I was like, oh man, even 80 standards, man, that's nasty. And he's got that terrible suit on. And the thing is, she's tall. Like, he just looks ridiculous standing next to her. So what part of, I mean, you know, his level of confidence is unbelievable. But I don't know why he thought, I was like, yeah, she's going to really be keen.
Although with 80s and 90s standards, I'm surprised he didn't actually call her, what do they usually call him, a lesbian or a dyke or something like that, if they go after these guys.
So a fucking whore wasn't enough for you. You thought that was a little bit low range.
I thought that was a change of pace to all the other films that you watch where they, do you know what? You've got the guy leching on the woman, and because the woman doesn't want to go for him, apparently they're lesbian.
Yeah. They're obviously a lesbian. But
usually, the fact he just called her a fucking whore and walked off.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, but then obviously, like, Matrix shows up then, and let's be clear, like, there's this whole thing then with these quite unique sports cars.
Are we glossing over the fact? Sorry, are we glossing over the fact that she's Tommy Chong's daughter, by the way?
I had no idea she was Tommy Chong's daughter.
Cheech Chong, yeah, she's Tommy Chong's daughter. Ray Dawn
Chong,
really? Yeah.
I didn't make that. I mean, she doesn't look anything like her. I mean, she's a very beautiful woman.
Yeah,
you know.
What are you saying?
Is not what I would call a beautiful
you don't
man.
like Tommy Chong.
I mean, I wouldn't put him at the top of my list of most handsome men in the world, but you do get this everything. It's kind of like Dallas Howard. It's just like, how did she happen? Like, I have no idea. It's just one of those unique things, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
sorry. But anyway, we'll go back to the sports cars, where I did not want to gloss over the fact that lady came from Tommy Chong.
Yeah, that is bizarre in fairness. But yeah, it's just like a big part, an oddly big part of this movie are the two sports cars that obviously Sully ends up driving, and Cindy's car. So she's driving a 1960s Sunbeam Alpine. It's a pretty odd car to have in America. And obviously, you know, Sully's driving around in a bright yellow 911, which is awesome. But you have these odd chase scenes, and obviously Arnie doesn't fit in any of these cars. You know, it's like he's again, this whole idea that he's trying to be stealth beyond his, you know, super loud watch. He's then suddenly he's hardly got on the corner, and he's tearing out a car seat.
Was it a car seat held by chewing gum, by the way? Because I believe Arnie is super strong, but to rip a car seat,
well, that's what we're going with.
Without damaging the floor, though.
Yeah. He seems to know what he's doing. But anyway, he makes it work. He sits on the floor of the car. I'm not sure if that really helps, because when they're then tailing Sully, I mean, Jesus Christ, she almost hits every car. Like, there's no way you're not turning around and being like, what the fuck is going on behind me?
But he is also the same size as he sat on the floor.
Like, well, again, it's one of those things in this film where I would argue it is completely and utterly pointless. All it does is serve to bring more attention to you. But it also is like, wow, look how strong Arnie is. He rips the seats out of stuff. So why not? But I was surprised then how quickly, when I think of like the mall and stuff, I always think of it as being kind of halfway through the film, but it's pretty quick. We get to the mall, and, you know, Sully and his whole, you know, Sully, I promised I'd kill you last. I lied. That happens like early doors. Like, he really does kill Sully first and quickly. Well, other than the guys back in the.
Before you get to that, mind, you're missing, because you've already mentioned it previously. You're missing the mall cops, mind. Before he kills Sully.
I was going to say we'll get to that. Obviously, there's the whole mall scene. There's some great stunts again in the mall with those random balloons and stuff. And the mall's from another film, isn't it? What the hell's it from? It's another. From Terminator 2. It's the mall from Terminator 2. Which is pretty cool. But yeah, like, obviously, Cindy, when she gets away from him, because there is this whole thing, why would she help him, whatever. So she goes and calls a mall cop. Fair enough. The mall cop was like, all right, this guy's fucking ginormous. I'm going to call another mall cop. And let's be clear, we're in a universe here where being a mall cop is supposedly really impressive to girls.
Because like these
these teenage girls are just like absolutely dripping wet over this fucking mall cop, which is an odd turn of phrase.
Like teenage girls, they looked like a mother and daughter duo.
Yeah, but they just loved mall cops. So you've got these two mall cops. Everyone loves mall cops apparently in this world. They can't handle Arnie, obviously. So what do? They call 1,000,001 fucking mall cops. They all there are so many more cops. You see one bit when they're running around the corner. I'm like, there's like 12 of them. And do you know what it reminded me of when it was happening was The Matrix Reloaded, when Keanu,
when all the Smiths coming out and
when all the Smiths jump, and it even has the pylon scene, just like in The Matrix, when like again 12 more cops all jump on top of Arnie, and somehow he hulks out of all of them. Just in one move, just throws everyone out the way.
I do love how that mall cop calls for backup mind when they're saying, "I need help." He's a big motherfucker.
Yeah, he's about 6'2", and he is one big motherfucker, man. So, okay, luckily, every mall cop in the country is working in this mall today. So you'd think they'd be fine, but
you would think then as well. There was a kid running around from Dyad with a Vengeance when when Bruce Willis stops them from shoplifting. They go, "Look around, the cops are into something. You can steal City Hall. It's like Christmas."
Yeah.
While all the mall cops are dealing with Arnie, there's got to be some shoplifters going.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And the thing is, even then, you're like, well, there's 12 of them. It's like, that's not going to be enough. It's like, you do realize that John Matrix can smell trouble. He in the opening sequence, they're like, wait, you could smell him? It's like, I totally smelled like it.
Yeah, I wrote that down. Nose of a bloodhound. Like, he just...
Yeah. He is... At first, I thought, did he hear them? So no. He smelt them downwind. Like he's a borderline superhero in this film.
And also, he must be because the balloon's made of Teflon or something stronger. Oh my god, like that balloon.
Yeah, I mean he's rolling the dice with that balloon, isn't he? But again, it's a proper like Jackie Chan level stunt.
We've bypassed the phone box.
Oh, when he just shakes the shit out of a phone box.
Yeah, shatters the glass by shaking the shit out of the phone box.
I feel like in that moment, Sully, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's clearly scared.
Yeah.
But I feel like if he just pulled the trigger again, he probably could have killed him there. But instead, he's given Arnie a chance. He's just shaking like that. These bizarrely futuristic looking phone boxes.
Yeah.
Which he just basically just shakes until it falls to pieces, and then he picks it up and flips it over. Yeah. And even then, Sully somehow gets away. But of course, he has to get away so you can have the car crash, and then you can have the whole him hanging Sully over the edge of a cliff, which supposedly the execs actually wanted Arnie to do. Wanted him to hold him by the ankle, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And I think you can actually see a bit of the wire on his foot at one point when he's initially hung upside, but it still looks great.
It's ironic because it looks great and it looks like Arnie is really holding him on his own without any help. But you're seeing Arnie then holding Jenny in like numerous scenes, and the way he's holding her, and she is just full on upright, like looks like he's no weight to him at all. She looks like she's actually in a wire harness or something.
It's quite odd. The way he holds it doesn't look natural.
So Arnie's holding Sully, and that looks natural and looks like Arnie could be doing it. But when he's holding this 11, 10-year-old girl, it looks like she's actually being held up by wires. It's really weird.
It is bizarre. Just as bizarre as Cindy getting back in. I guess Cindy feels like she has to get back in the car then with Arnie because she's pushed over a cop, maybe? Because, she's willing to give up John Matrix at that point because she tells on him and she's like, okay, the mall cop's going. But then when the mall cops is about to shoot him, and then she suddenly has a change of heart and kind of knocks him out the way. So then she thinks, well, because I've stopped that mall cop from shooting him dead, I'm all in now. Like from that moment on, she's just like, well, no, if anything, like it's not like John Matrix comes back around and finds her. Like she runs outside, stops him and says, no, you have to let me get in this car. I'm going on this adventure with you now.
I love as the movie goes on. I know it's all set in one night, basically, but as that or 11 hours, I love how, as the movie goes on, her stewardess uniform becomes shorter and less, and just to make it more appealing. Do you know what I mean? As she's going on,
and I think she's actually like. Sometimes you make the argument, like early does, like, does she need to be on this? But then, of course, because she's a pilot and stuff, she absolutely has to be. And she apparently knows all the stuff she needs to know for them to get to Valverde. Fair enough, whatever. We want to keep this moving along. It's a 90-minute movie, and most of it is Arnie killing people. But I was like, I actually really like her in this.
Yeah,
I think she's got like a bit of levity. She's almost like, she kind of walks the line between, what's her name in Temple of Doom? Willie, yeah. She kind of like, she has those moments where she's like, what the fuck's going on? And it's like, oh, there's too much testosterone. But then she's also, pretty useful when she needs to be. Yeah. And I do think they have like a certain level of chemistry. And it's almost a shame that they didn't allow them to have that moment. It's almost implied at the end of the film that it is going to become a relationship. But I think, again, it comes back to that whole, I want to believe, again, because I think there was a love scene, but it was cut.
Yeah.
And I want to believe
it looked natural.
Yeah, well, I want to believe it's that, but I also suspect that this is 1985 and basically Hollywood just didn't have interracial couples on screen. It's the same reason that Eddie Murphy is never involved in a sexual relationship for all those massive films he's in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think it's like Boomerang in 92 is the first film when he has a proper sexual relationship. And even then, I'm pretty sure it was with a black woman then, because he was definitely supposed to have one in Golden Child. But that was cut because they're like, listen, yeah, everyone loves Eddie Murphy, but we can't have him having sex with a white girl on screen, which sounds like ridiculous now, but that was the state of affairs in the mid-80s. And basically, I suspect that's probably what happened here, which is a bit of a shame. But as I said, I still think, despite Arnie's limited range, should we say, that they actually have pretty good chemistry on screen. Well, and it's a shame almost that she's not in more because I think she's really good in this.
We'll have to move on because we've talked for a while, but we haven't actually reached the crux of this conversation yet, which is the island. But we do have to mention Bill Duke.
And, of course, the most 80s motel of all time. So Bill Duke shows up at the motel. And, I mean, he's got another Cadillac. He apparently loves Cadillacs. And, I mean, it's just got right down to the random 80s titties. Like, you've got to have those 80s titties. But it's got, like,
the shared motel room doors as well. Randomly.
Yeah. I've actually been to a couple of hotels where you do have those weird hotel doors, but I've never burst through and found another woman, obviously, in the midst of.
But also, when that blanket came up, how were they having sex? Because he was on his knees, and the woman is standing above him. I think there was some weird shit going on in that goddamn hotel room. I think they caught him not just in the middle of coitus, but some pretty weird shit. But it's just one of those. There was some pegging going on.
Yeah, maybe it was, but it's just one of those things like every 80s film, every 80s action film in particular, they just always have that random pair.
Yeah, you got to have the random breast in there. Yeah.
Lethal Weapon, it's like, did we need to see tits there? It doesn't matter. You're getting them. This is an 80s action film. If it's not an 80s action film unless we see at least, some tits. So but ridiculous. But there again, it's his fight with Bill Duke, which I find the most convincing because I'm like, again, he's not cut like Arnie, sure, but he's a big fucking guy and he looks scary. He's got those eyes and everything. Obviously, we know him as Duke in Predator. Yeah. But, they have a pretty good scrap until I don't know what's on the floor that ends up through his chest, but he dies, pretty abruptly. Yeah.
Oh, and also, again, the one-liners. My God.
Oh,
that one. I agree.
This film,
I eat green berets for breakfast, and I'm hungry, or something.
Right now, I'm very hungry. Yeah. I mean, I would argue that this film might be Arnie's kind of one-liners peak in terms of if you look through it, there's the "I lied," the Sally line. I let him go, which is 2 minutes later. Obviously, we haven't even mentioned that, he's dead tired. And, well, I'm not sure if it was initially a line, but I'm ear sick. Yeah. That one's a pretty good one. I'll be back. He drops I'll be back in this. Yeah. Let off some steam, Bennett. And, of course, as you said, I eat green berets for breakfast. And right now I'm very hungry. It's that's a great line. And all these are in a 90-minute movie. Yeah. This film is most of his dialogue is quips. And one-liners is unbelievable.
Do you think they wrote these just because they couldn't give him long things to memorize?
Well, supposedly the execs for this film didn't want him to say anything, literally anything. And it was always no, dude, he's got to say something. And he doesn't say a huge amount. And again, we've all become accustomed to Arnie's unique charm. Even now, he's never been a great actor, which I don't think is a problem. I was speaking to my dad a couple of days ago, funny enough, about this. There are certain actors who obviously, you can find better actors than Arnie. Yeah. And of course, part of the appeal is the fact that he's huge and he's muscle-bound and stuff. But they're maybe not to that level, not to a Mr. Olympia level, but muscle-bound guys are, a dime a dozen. He has what you can't teach, and it's screen presence. It's kind of like they say about sprinting. You can't teach speed. You're either fast or you're fucking not. You can get a little bit faster, but you're either a 10-second 100 meters or you're not. That's it. And with Arnie, he might not be the best actor in the world, but he has that presence of screen. You could put 100 guys up there and it just wouldn't look right. And it's one of the major reasons this movie works is because there's something about him, like, you know, that you think will obviously get to him tooling up, like on the beach kind of thing.
Yeah.
In the best tooling up scene in cinema history. There's just no two ways about it. You know, they shot from below, he gets all the stuff on, he paints his face, and you're just like, yep, that guy is a fucking movie star. Like, you just knew from Conan the Barbarian right the way through. Everyone knew that it's like, this guy can hardly act, he can hardly speak English, but he's a fucking movie star. He absolutely is. And this film proves it maybe more than most.
Yeah. No, agree.
All hands on his performance.
He is. It's weird because the screen presence he has, the charm he has, kind of outweighs the fact that he's honestly a terrible actor, but it's great. He is, mate. He is. Yeah,
but it's something to do, like you say, like you buy him as this tough guy, but as cheesy as that opening scene is with him and his daughter, with Jenny, it's like you also buy him as being this nice guy. You know, like you can just totally, like, as being a sweetheart, and the fact that he can turn it on a moment's notice. I don't know, like, it's bizarre because he doesn't have a range in the traditional sense of acting, but he definitely has a unique Arnie-specific range to his acting. And he is an absolute unicorn in the movie world. Because as you said, like, he's not a great actor. He's got this bizarro accent. But for some odd reason, you put him up on the screen. And like this movie almost epitomizes what Arnie is an actor. You look at it and you're like, this shouldn't fucking work. But it's awesome. Yeah. Commando is just like Arnie. It's all these weird things stuck together. You're like, wait, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. And then you see it all put in front of you as a whole. You're like, wait a minute, this is fucking dope. So yeah, Commando's dope and Arnie's dope. Yeah. But I'm bound to say that. So
he kills Bill Duke. They then go shopping to the only the only army surplus store that seems to have everything you need for a one-man army. Not just, okay, we've got a couple of hidden guns back there. We've got pretty much every automatic weapon you're going to need. We've got grenade launchers. We've got claymore mines.
Yeah.
Hand grenades. The coolest binoculars you've ever seen, which actually show you to turn left or right if you want to find a guy.
They're totally sweet. Yeah. And the weird pen gun thing, or the
ballistic knife thing. It's a ballistic knife.
Okay, yeah, there's that as well. Yeah. Like, everything about that is cool, yeah. It's this great shot. Arnie's the best. So I tell you what he's not the best at? Again, it comes back to what you said earlier, stealth. Right, I feel like they could probably, I don't know, kick in a door, smash a window. Yeah. No. I want to get caught by the cops because I'm going to drive a bulldozer, which I got from, I don't know the fuck. Where did you get that goddamn bulldozer from? He drives it right to the front. He drives it right to the front of the building, and the first thing you think is, how long do you think it's going to be until the cops show up? And even then, they're all pretty chill. They go through, they steal everything in the store. Yeah. And of course he gets arrested because you drove a bulldozer through a building.
Stealing everything in the store. I love the fact that he had to think as well. Oh, do you know what I need? I need some of that camo paint.
Got to get the camo paint.
I'm not just going to get the weapon. I'm going to get some camo paint because why not?
Don't forget magic camo paint. It's camo paint he puts on his arms and his face, but then when his top comes off, is magically all over his body.
Yeah.
And clearly put on by a professional. Sorry.
What I did love, and we will get in when we get to the island, then the magic guns, but they actually did it right with the grenade launcher, with the rocket launcher. The fact that only 4 rounds were shot.
Yeah,
which I thought was really good because obviously she shot one behind her, then turned around, shot the truck. And if you're trying to save Arnie, maybe don't shoot a rocket at him.
I feel like she was a moment away or an inch away from essentially ending the movie right there. Like, I get it. You've got to stop the truck. Arnie's in the back of the truck and she shoots a rocket launcher at it. I'm like, if that's any higher, then that kills Arnie.
Yeah.
But, she just goes for it. She's like, well, I hope this fucking works. And fair play to her. It's a proactive move, no doubt. But I'm same as you. I'm not convinced that shooting a rocket at the truck that he's in is necessarily the best idea. But whatever, she's on board. She can fly a plane now. She knows all the information required. Like there's before that, there's that whole warehouse scene where everything just falls into place. She knows about the fuel. She knows about the plane.
She knows that fuel is specific for that type of plane, which is stored there. But then when she gets there, she goes, oh, I didn't know it was one of these planes. I don't know how to fly one of these planes. No, 2 minutes ago, you just said that it was for this plane. Also,
the amount of knowledge that she has is very hit and miss and very dependent on where they need the plot to go, essentially.
When she's flying it as well, and she says, oh, yeah, the army shoots shit out of this area all the time, so the flights avoid it. Well, yeah, I would think that the flights avoid it. But did you notice who the radar technician was?
Bill Paxton. I never noticed that before.
Never noticed
that before. And I was like, wait a minute, that's and he even had, like, obviously he delivers a few lines, whatever, but there's something about the way he delivers his last line, like, we lost him, sir. And it reminded me so much. He went full Hudson. I thought he went full Hudson. Okay. Like, I could just imagine Hudson delivering that line in Aliens.
He reminds me of Michael Wincott from, not Michael Wincott, what am I doing? What is his name? Spaceballs. He was also in Police Academy.
Oh, yeah, about where the screen got jammed.
Yeah. And he goes, I should be seeing the beep, 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 but I'm seeing the blip, blip, blip.
Yeah. I was talking about Spaceballs yesterday, funny enough. But
for some reason, when Bill Paxton was going, we lost him, sir, it was reminding me of that. But randomly,
I can see it could have been before. Well, again, there's something about this film, like at any moment, it always walks right up to the line of parody, but like stops just short, arguably. I mean, again, you could make the argument that the last 15 minutes maybe nudges over the way, the same three guys keep magically getting killed. A lot of white guys in very suspect mustaches to make him look, quote unquote, a little bit foreign. It does push the boundaries a little bit, but somehow remains awesome. But it all starts, as you say, with that amazing scene where they steal every gun in the world. Fantastic.
Michael Winslow from Police Academy, by the way, just so I get his name right.
That was it, yeah.
So we get it now. We got to get to the island.
So we're on the island. We've already mentioned that it has, without question, the best gear up scene of all time.
I was infatuated with that scene as a kid, and I think
everyone has. It's been ripped off.
I love a good kit up scene. I really do love a good scene.
You do realise that every single kitting up scene, gearing up scene, whatever you want to call it, every single one is homaging Commando. Everyone. Like this was the film that essentially created, I mean, it may have been done to a certain extent to one level of it before this, but this is the one that perfected it in 85, and everything else just felt like you're trying to do Commando, but you're probably not doing it as well.
You say perfected, and it is the best kit up scene. I absolutely love that kit up scene. But then you move from the kit up scene to see Army climbing up the hill to basically what looks like a human version of Buckaroo.
Yeah.
It's like the grenades are just,
everything's hanging off.
They're hanging off him. It's all dripping off him, and it reminds you. It's like, obviously it was homage in Hot Fuzz. They've got everything on him, and he's got the two shotguns hanging in the back and stuff. But
and I think they do it in.
That's the reason they hired Arnie, because they couldn't get any other actor to carry that amount of shit up that hill for that shot.
Well, isn't it like Hot Shots Part 2, where they literally homage that scene, and at the end of it, he falls over? Yeah. Because it's just too much. I mean, and that is the first scene when it really does knock on the door of the truly absurd, of parodying itself, because he has so many weapons. He's carrying so much firepower, so many grenades. He's like, this is ridiculous. And just as you think it can't get any more ridiculous, the next 10 minutes happens. I mean, why there are so many soldiers standing on the roof, I have no goddamn idea, other than it all of a sudden becomes very video gamey. There are only people there to be shot. There's no human reason for a lot of those characters to be in a lot of those places other than to get shot. And I love the fact that, again, I mentioned earlier the fact that this came out the same year as First Blood Part 2. And that's another movie which specializes in absolutely and utterly incompetent villains and henchmen. These are stormtrooper levels of incompetence. They just can't hit anything. He makes no effort to get into cover. There are long parts of this film where he just stands in the middle of a field and just pulls the trigger of a gun that never needs to be reloaded.
Because they're not soldiers. They have been recruited from the Valverde Olympic gymnast team.
100%. 100%.
The amount of, I've already said it, like triple lindies and somersaults and backflips.
Yeah, there's a lot of Yeah, nobody stays on their feet for very long in this.
So,
there's that kind of like he's shooting people with a shotgun from, I don't know, 20 yards and they're flying backwards.
Yes.
Nobody just falls to the ground dead. Everybody's flying everywhere. It's ridiculous. But
you said about his magic weapon that didn't need reloading right up until obviously it ran out of bullets and he ended up in the garden shed, which I wanted to comment because I text you probably sometime last year. And before we started this podcast, obviously, that garden shed was new to me. If you remember the Texas Center. The versions that I watched, because I never watched this on VHS or anything like that. I always caught it on TV, usually like ITV or something like that. For some reason, that garden shed scene wasn't in any of the edits I watched.
Well, it is the most, and I think you already alluded to it at the start of the podcast, it's easily the most violent scene in the film. Because most of it, as you say, people get shot. Sure, when Bill Duke dies, you do see a bit of blood and stuff. But in that bit, when he comes out, as you say, he throws some kind of spinning blade, takes off the top of a guy's head, and then he does, chop a guy's arm off. And you see him, he screams, his arm's missing. It looks kind of ridiculous, but it is properly violent.
We've said the force it takes to chuck a pipe through a man and a tank to let steam out. Mm-hmm. The force and accuracy he has to have to throw a death frisbee, frisbee, to chop a guy's head off and actually scalp him and kill him is ridiculous.
Yeah, but you're forgetting that this is a man who can smell the enemy. He can smell the enemy, Rob. And Jesus Christ, of course he can take this guy's head off.
The very next scene, I don't know if you noticed this, it's a bit of a goof, but I was watching it last night and when he picks up, I got my notes by here. When he picks up then that belt-fed machine gun.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, very awesome. But when he picks it up and he first starts shooting it, the bullets are feeding in from the right. Mm-hmm. And then the very next scene when you see it, the bullets are feeding in from the left.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, if that's the only goof in this film, it'd be a goddamn miracle, let's be honest.
But then, every shot you go back to him, the bullet belt grows or shrinks.
Of course. It's usually, any other film, it's usually something like a cigarette. You'd be like, oh, well, it was like it burned out a little bit. Then it'd be like, no, this is just bullets. This is just endless bullets. Yeah. So, of course, how many... they should have had more cameras on him.
The mansion as well was the same mansion that was in Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
But, so that was fantastic. That the fact that he was able to kill the other 100-odd soldiers with that...
Well, yeah, I mean, he takes, as far as I can tell, he takes cover once in that whole scene, other than obviously in the garden. Let's be clear, the most deadly garden shed known to man, just full of weapons, ridiculous. But other than that, and that's only because he's run out of bullets and he's been shot in the side. He's got that classic 80s action hero. Well, not just 80s. You watch any action film, if the hero gets injured, they nearly always get injured in that exact same place. Yeah. So just above the hip on the left-hand side, because there's no organs there, you can buy the fact that they could probably just run it off, but it looks nasty enough for them to have a little moment where they look hurt or human. So that happens in every film. But other than that scene, there's one bit when he hides, as far as I can tell, behind flowers. Like, there are walls, there are all sorts. He doesn't hide behind anything else other than a bed of flowers, which somehow seem to just, repel bullets. Yeah. But yeah, for the most part, he kills, I mean, it must be, 80, 90 people?
Yeah.
Most of them just standing on the lawn with that gun, just mowing them down. Everyone's shooting at him, no one can hit shit, but he is absolutely, lethal. He hits, every bullet hits. Every bullet hits.
I've been told to mention this as well by Dave. He said I have to mention this part. The showdown with Arius, or Arius, however they say his name. Mm-hmm. You've got Arius on the top of the stairs with his automatic rifle, and Arnie's at the bottom with the shotgun.
Yeah.
And it starts off with Arius, and he's shooting his gun, and it goes, like, the bullets,
Yeah.
Arnie, bang. And then, Arnie, bang. And then you get to the last thing of Arius, and it goes, cuts. And just before Arnie bangs his gun, then the statue behind Arnie, the bust, chops in half, and you see the bullet trail go down the wall.
Oh, geez.
It is no sound.
There's no sound. Of course, yeah.
So what he's questioned is, what Dave questioned was, he wonders what they cut out of that little scene, or whether it was just a goof.
Well, I think it'd be a goof because there is, and I'm not sure if I've seen it, and I'm not convinced it matters because I noticed when looking this up on Amazon, there's Commando, which is 91 minutes, I think. And then there's the director's cut, which is 92 minutes. So perhaps that extra minute explains what happens there. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's the second goof that you've noticed. Yes. I mean, again, I can only assume that this film was filmed pretty quickly. You know, it's, again, a lot about that action scene. While super fun, I don't think they've got realism or facts at the forefront of their design choices. Put it that way.
Not at all.
And it only gets more weird after he kills the ex-president of Valverde, Arias. Once they go, I mean, obviously it's a nice mansion, but what the hell's underneath it? Like, there's an art gallery underneath it. There's a giant boiler room. There's an electric fence for no fucking apparent reason other than to give Bennett superpowers.
Yeah, because he went Super Saiyan again.
Yeah, we'll get to him going Super Saiyan for sure.
When Jenny escapes and she runs across the courtyard to go down the steps, she then apparently ends up underneath the mansion to go back under. Because she will whisper her dad's name. Mm-hmm. Arnie will hear her after he's just killed Arias and go, can you hear her go, Daddy? Jenny! And he runs up.
No. I don't think he heard her. I think he smelt her words. I think that's probably what happened there. Yeah, I think he smelt her words. I think that's another talent of John Matrix. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm willing, considering what he does in this film, super hearing is, sure, let's go with that as well. Of course he can hear everything.
That electric, well, it wasn't even electric. It looked like a mini generator. It looked like the exact same thing that they had on the roof of the prison in Tango and Cash, which is another film we will be doing.
Oh, 100%.
Where Robert Zah gets electrocuted, but he doesn't turn Super Saiyan. He doesn't bounce back. But it's fantastic when he does that. He pushes Bennett into it. Bennett shakes and then just comes
screams.
Back. Yeah.
He looks like he's good. Like you just think, oh, he's dead. But instead, he comes back and starts whooping Arnie's ass.
He has been supercharged. He was fast charged at that point.
Yeah, and the thing is, like you said, it's weird because obviously we've talked at the top about like how great Bennett is, how ridiculous their relationship is. But we don't always do it with these podcasts, but you can't help with this one. We've essentially just gone from start to finish and just gone, all right, this happened and this happened, because it's also ridiculous. And as you'll notice, we've hardly mentioned Bennett because he shares basically zero screen time with Arnie. It's almost like Arnie's like nonplussed about him. He's like, oh, you used to be in my team, but you're a bit of a psycho. It's like, yeah, but I wasn't happy about that. And also I secretly kind of want to have sex with you. Well, I say secretly, I think it's actually pretty clear about it. And Arnie does seem to know at the end, like when he kind of goads him, because obviously Bennett's got him banged to rights. Like he could just shoot him. He's got his daughter, he's got the gun. But he's like, come on, Bennett. Oh, yeah. It's like, take the knife, put it in me, turn it, look into my eyes, see what ticks. Let's party. Come on. And it's like, of course he's going to get involved because he loves you and wants to kill you. He's all very confused about it. And that is made very clear by his wardrobe.
Yeah,
naturally.
Because Bennett doesn't actually say, like, what is it? I'm not going to shoot you between the eyes. I'm going to shoot you between the balls.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, even my wife says, it's like, between the balls. Isn't that a weird thing to say? I was like, yeah, it's a really fucking weird thing to say.
Because also,
it's a really weird thing to say.
If he is shooting in between the... And I thought way too much about this. But if he is shooting in between the balls, and obviously his ball bag is hanging, is that just a flesh wound? Because it's just gone through the bag.
I'm not sure if I'm happy about you using the term ball bag is hanging in this podcast at all. But yeah, I can see that.
Title for the podcast, I think. Ball
bag is hanging.
But it's hanging down.
I think there's a lot
between the balls, so it's just a flesh wound, isn't it?
I don't know, man. We've all seen RoboCop. I think any shot in and around that section.
Oh, yeah, but that wasn't in the balls. That was in the dick. What he said is he's going to shoot in between the balls.
I think the whole area, I think if, dude, I was playing football last week and I took a football to the crowd. Like, you only need to take a graze.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
If someone's shooting you between the ball, I don't care where anything else is, it's the end of your day. Like, that's it. Forget about it.
I have a 2-year-old whose favorite thing to do at the moment is to jump on me to play, and his knees directly always find something I don't want him to find.
Well, yeah, just replace that kid's knee with a bullet. So, I'm thinking...
But what he's saying
it's a weird
he's going to shoot him in the ball. Like I said, I thought way too much about this.
No, and I did as well. The more I thought about it, I was just like, yeah, but it's a strange turn of phrase, but at the end of the day, he is shooting him ostensibly in the crotch. So I'm like, yeah, fair enough. That's unpleasant enough. But yeah, they end up obviously having a fight instead. He goads him into this like knife fight, which is pretty cool. As I said at the start, one of the more absurd things is Bennett goading Arnie, saying, "Oh, you're old, you're over the hill." You know, it's like Bennett's there with his middle-age spread going on, and he's looking at what might be the most unbelievable example of a human being the world has ever seen. And it's like, all right, we're going to go with this, fair enough. But they have like a pretty cool fight, sure. And like, you know, I know Bennett's not nearly as big or strong, but he is, despite the ridiculous accent and stuff, he is imposing. There's a reason he's in Mad Max 2. He just looks like a bit of a psycho. And of course, it ends up with immortal let off some steam Bennett. So you know, even the best fights are, you know, offset by something equally absurd within moments.
What was Vernon Wells' name in Mad Max 2, by the way?
I cannot remember for the life of me.
Wes.
Was it Wes?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I thought it was going to be like Thunderhawk or something like that. Like, no, it's Wes.
Yeah, Wes.
I bet you it was actually Rob, but everyone just calls him Wes.
He calls him Wes. And they always thought his name was Wesley as he grew up. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be it. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, they have the whole moment at the end with the general, and basically it feels like a kind of almost way of them saying, it's like, oh, are you going to make a sequel? Are you going to make a sequel? And he's like, no way, dude. No chance, as it were, if we want to quote him directly. And then you get that great 80s rock song at the end. But, sorry.
One person we forgot to mention as well, she was the flight attendant, Chelsea Field.
Oh, yeah.
Teela from Masters of the Universe, and a lot of action people will know her as Bruce Willis's wife in The Last Boy Scout.
Oh, yeah. Good points.
Yeah, and then she was in Flipper.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, I forgot she was in it, yeah.
It's a decent enough cast, but again, it almost doesn't matter who else is in it, because this is so Arnie's movie.
Yeah.
And that is the thing about Arnie, and I think it's the reason that, you know, because they're talking about, and we'll get to this, legacy, obviously, about the fact that I think The Rock wants to remake this.
Oh my God.
You can't remake this. And, you know, you look at The Rock's career, and he's become so obsessed with, you know, the commercial aspects of this film. And it's the reason that, well, he'll always be, you know, he's the most successful actor in the world at the moment. He'll make all the money in the world. But there's a reason that his films just aren't memorable, most of them.
He needs to leave My 80s alone, because he has been trying to flirt with Big Trouble in Little China.
I think he knows he needs something like this, because he's been in some perfectly fine films. But I think if you ask people 20 years from now, it's like, oh, well, what's the quintessential Rock performance or the Rock role? And you'd be like, well, he played a bit part in Fast and Furious, maybe. Again, not really his film.
He's not going to do.
The thing is with Arnie is that rather than thinking, obviously he's thinking commercially, but he aligned himself to some great directors. You know, you think of Arnie and you think of like James Cameron. And even like at the peak of his career, he decided to make a body horror movie set on Mars with Paul Verhoeven. It's like that is the complete opposite of the kind of thing The Rock would do now. It's like, you know, usually think, oh, well, you'd make a Marvel film or a Disney film or something like that. It's like, no, I'm going to make this absolutely batshit film that Paul Verhoeven's directing.
And they're going to do Commando, and it's going to be like a 12A for UK audiences. It's going to be a kid-friendly Commando, or maybe push it to a 15 or an R rating at that. But
I'll tell you, it doesn't matter.
No,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 15. It doesn't matter if it's an 18. This film, it isn't memorable because it's uber violent. Like you said, you don't actually see a lot of blood. You can't recreate this film. This is the right person making the right film at the right time. This film only works in 1985. It belongs in 1985. It belongs with an Arnie who's just finding his feet in the acting career. Yeah. And I think if you try and remake this now, you lose, as I said at the top, that almost intangible alchemy. You can't say, it's hard to describe why this film works. And for that reason, if you try and remake it, you're not going to get that magic again. Lightning's not going to strike twice with this.
Yeah.
You can say maybe about remaking Predator or any of those films. I think it's a bad idea, whatever. But remaking Commando now is a fool's errand because it's not going to be the same.
Right, because we flirted with it. I know we usually go into facts, but we've already flirted with it. So let's just jump straight into legacy.
Cool. Well, we've already mentioned the fact that obviously there's no sequel to this film.
Nope.
So, I mean, they wrote a sequel, I think, and did it end up turning into Die Hard? Was that what I read somewhere? I've heard conflicting reports that basically the concept for this was turned into Die Hard, but then I also know Die Hard was based on a book.
No, so Die Hard was based on Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe, I think it was.
Which the originally turned into a film with what's his name, the singer, because he got offered the part.
That was the detective. So with Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra. Thank you.
Yeah, but no. So I believe it was turned into, I want to say 2, but it might have been 3.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Die Hard 2. I think Die Hard 2 was based on Commando 2.
Okay, fair enough. That's it then. I knew there was some kind of link, but I couldn't seem to find it. Everything seemed to be contradictory. But other than that, it doesn't actually have, obviously, a huge legacy with no sequels. I mean, we've already mentioned the proposed remake, which we think is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But its main legacy, as I said, I think is tooling up scenes. I think that's really, although I think if you were going to like send someone a picture of Arnie, you might send them a picture of Commando. I think when people think of Arnie, maybe even if they haven't seen the film, that kind of visualization of Arnie, whether it be tuning up on the beach or holding that massive gun, as you said, with like the bullets hanging out the side with the face painted stuff, it's almost become the quintessential Arnie look, I suppose.
Yeah.
But its legacy is what, the rest of the 80s in terms of action films?
Yeah, well, there was a bunch of films that went off of it, and I got a few here. But I wanted to say that they actually released a line of action figures, didn't they, in '86? And I know a bunch of these films have done that, but it makes me, because they released a bunch of action figures because they wanted to cash in on the success of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
yeah. So
problem is there's not enough characters.
Yeah, I have seen a bunch of these action figures, and it's just, you should Google just Commando action figures 1986. I
had no idea that action figures, like, I know Rambo had action figures and stuff, but a lot of these ended up being based on the cartoons that were based on these movies, and Commando, to my knowledge, never had a cartoon.
And they've got the problem characters, so you've got like Sawbones.
Well, that's the thing. I guess what you'd end up doing is like having toys based on the members of his team who are all dead now.
So it is, yeah. So you've got C-Team, which is Matrix's team, and the bad guys called Fear. It's an acronym for something, but it's not saying what it is. So
it's basically Cobra, isn't it? That's it.
So the C-Team was Matrix, Specs, spelled S-P-E-X.
Specs, yeah. The dorky one. You know he does computers, Specs, for sure.
And he has this weird thing on his chest where the infrared goggles or whatever fly off his chest onto his face.
Fantastic.
Blaster, who's got a cannon strapped to his chest, and Chopper, who looks like Jesse Ventura from The Running Man.
Oh yeah. Great stuff.
With a double magazined automatic rifle strapped to his chest.
Oh, they're pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, again, very G.I. Joe. But that really does look like Jesse Ventura.
The bad guy, Sawbones, who has an eye patch and literally a circular saw strapped to his hand.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, these could all be based on characters that already exist because, again, one of those things that happened in the 80s was that people ripped off everyone else. Yeah. It was just one of those things that was almost just allowed, wasn't it?
Hang on, I'm getting there. So I've only got 3. Stalker, who all these bad guys, mind, have. So the good guys have the things just attached to their chest. The bad guys have a new hand. So Stalker has a crossbow on his hand.
Okay, yeah.
And he is slightly Mr. Miyagi-ish, or Mr. Miyagi-ish.
Yeah. Slightly, I'll go with that.
And then you've got Leadhead, who looks like somebody from Mad Max.
Yeah.
Who has a welding mask on his head.
Yeah, it's all kind of generic bad guy stuff, isn't it? For sure.
And then the best one, Psycho, who has a chainsaw strapped to his hand, a la Ash Williams from and he has the Jason Voorhees hockey mask.
Yeah, I mean, it is all very derivative. It is very much like, can we turn this into a toy line? So we're just going to take the Commando name and we're just going to basically rip off a bunch of characters and turn them into toys. And that's what it is. And,
So-
I'm sure it works fine.
The main films that inspired by Commando, pretty much straight after. Strike Commando,
Nice.
Commando Squad,
Oh, my God.
and When Eagles Strike.
I remember that one.
They're the ones listed as being inspired by Commando. So it's quite funny, yeah.
Well, yeah, as I say, it's odd because, obviously those aren't classics, any of those by any stretch of the imagination. I just think rather than other than the kind of tuning up scene, it's more the tone and the pacing of the film. This almost feels like, and we've mentioned this before, the fact that if you go back and watch a lot of these 80s movies, the stuff in the early 80s, a lot of it still feels like it has one foot in the 70s, yes. Like Rambo First Blood, the first film, and 48 Hours, which we've done on this, excuse me. A lot of those films, yeah, they do have action, but they're still quite gritty. And I think Commando and, to give it credit, First Blood Part 2, which I think was one of, like the second or third biggest film in 1984, they're really the films that established the template for action movies for the next 8 years, like going into the early 90s. It all started really with those two films. So even if it's not a direct rip-off, every action film of the 80s after 84 at least took something from Commando.
I want to watch Strike Commando for the cover art alone of the hero with bullets straight over his chest, holding a gun, which is belt-fed, has a grenade launcher on the bottom with a sniper scope, and the barrel of the gun has 6 barrels. That's just a spectacular gun. That is a legit gun. What is that about?
Well, it's a magic gun. There's no two ways about it. But it was almost like, right, we can't copy Commando and just have our hero having all the guns. So what we'll do is just have his one gun essentially being all the guns.
Yeah.
So it's a different approach for sure, but the same results, I have no doubt.
Yeah.
A lot of dead, faceless terrorists.
Yeah. Right. Should we move on to facts?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
I've got a lot here, actually, man.
Jesus Christ. I had to cut this short at some point, and I realised we are flirting with probably an hour and a half on this podcast. So,
we need to get through this quick.
So, according to Alyssa Milano, Arnold Schwarzenegger was very protective of her on set. He even helped with her algebra homework.
He's a sweetheart. He really, and by the way, he really is a sweetheart now.
Yeah.
Like, when did Arnie, a Republican no less, become an absolute just darling? Like, I see him online, and again, it's like his movie persona. He's quite cheesy, but I'm like, God damn it, I love Arnie. I love Arnie. So I'm not going to go off on one. We need to get through this quickly. And I'm like, should I tell you how much I love Arnold Schwarzenegger? Let's get this.
Vernon Wells nailed it with this one. Vernon Wells obviously played Bennett. He described his look as Freddie Mercury on steroids.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so we've already said these two. So about Sully on the cliff and the shopping mall is used in Terminator 2. Ray Dawn Chong's reaction to the motel fight scene were ad-libbed and they were filmed separately.
They're really good.
Yeah,
they're really good.
So she didn't actually watch the fight.
What's going on with all this macho bullshit?
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ray Dawn Chong shot a love scene, but it was deemed unconvincing and was dropped from the movie.
Yeah. It was awfully interracial. Yeah. I'm not sure about this.
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Vernon Wells have remained close friends ever since the making of the movie.
Awesome.
An army... I love this. An army consultant showed Arnie the move to quietly kill Henrique, right? So the neck snap.
The elbow and the neck snap.
Well, no. Yeah, quietly kill. So it can't be the elbow because that wasn't quiet.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, but you can't grab him by the head. I guess it's kind of as quiet as possible. He makes it, what he does, to give him his credit, he makes it like he's adjusting the seat and then he throws it back. It's not the quietest thing.
It's making a loud noise to disguise a fart. That's what he's doing at this point.
It is a little bit, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, is there a quieter way unarmed for him to kill this giant man? I'm like, I don't think there is.
No.
Like, of all the moments of bad stealth in this film, I think we probably unfairly attacked that one because I think given the circumstances, he probably did about as well as he could have. I think it's the rest of the film where his stealth can be called into question at pretty much every turn. Right down to the moment in the mall when he's hiding behind the pillar and he kind of looks at the cop and tries to hide. And he's like, dude, you're hiding like 40% of your body. He's the worst hider in the world. It's like
Tom Arnold hiding behind the lamppost in True Lies and not getting shot.
Yeah. It's just like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. During the scene in the shed after Matrix cuts the soldier's arm off, he was originally supposed to hit the victim with it and say, need a hand. Amazing. This scene was never shot, however, as it was considered too macabre. Despite this, the 2007 director's cut restored a few extra seconds of footage of Matrix tossing the cut limb nonchalantly at the wounded soldier as most likely a lighter alternative to blatantly hitting him with it.
Yeah, that would be... I don't think that would suit the tone of the film, in fairness. Yeah. Beating him... Like, he's already basically dead, and then it's just Matrix just beating the shit out of him with his own arm. I'm not sure we need to see that.
Arnold Schwarzenegger performed many of his own stunts, as producers found it difficult to find a stunt double for the bodybuilder. The actor suffered a dislocated shoulder and several stitches during the shoot.
Yeah, I think he almost stabbed himself once as well. So, awesome.
Arnold Schwarzenegger can bench press over 450 pounds, but they made the phone booth out of balsa wood anyway.
Well, you want to make it look easy, I suppose.
Yeah. Even with blanks in his gun, Dan Hedaya, who was Arias, was afraid to shoot the gun.
He's not actually great in this film, but whatever.
According to Steven D'Souza, Arnold Schwarzenegger told him, I like this picture. I'm not a caveman before the shooting and killing. I'm a normal person. He is not a normal person, living out there in the woods, carrying trees, carrying his daughter.
But he is eating ice cream and feeding deers and stuff. So, there's...
As a normal person...
Sorry, we've got to mention it. Right, if you want to know how potentially weird Matrix is and his little world that he's created with his daughter, there's one scene when he comes back into the house and it's just when he's looking for his daughter and one of the henchmen is there and he's like trying to make a deal with him and he's like wrong and he just shoots him in the head. There are two pictures on the wall behind him. They are fucking mental. There's one, a painting of a little girl butt naked getting into a bath. Very strange. And below it is just like a poster, like a kid's, like, it almost looks like a movie poster, but it's just taped to the wall below this framed picture of a baby getting... It's a bizarro combo. So yeah, I throw into question that his whole existence up in the woods there with his daughter is a bit of a strange one.
And my last one, it doesn't actually say why. It could be because of this. After filming one scene, Arnold Schwarzenegger told Mark L. Lester to never give Vernon Wells a real knife. I wonder what happened there.
Yeah. The thing is, you buy into the idea that he might be a psycho.
Oh my God.
Sure. He feels like to this film what like Billy was to Predator.
He is stroking the blade of that knife like it's a shaft.
Yeah, and the way he loses his shit, I mean, I don't think my quote at the start of this podcast probably does it credit. But when he loses his shit and decides that he's going to go after Matrix with a knife, like the look in his eyes, I mean, the delivery, everything about it, Jesus Christ, the guy's a psycho for sure.
Yeah, that's me for facts. So unless you got...
I pretty much everything covered. I mean, this film had 54 stunt performers in the credits. That's 17 more than people were actually cast in the film, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think there were... Lisa Milano said that Commando was absolutely massive in Japan. And on the basis of that, a record exec offered her a 5-album deal, assuming she could sing. She actually signed up, and all 5 albums went platinum. She signed supposedly with a record label called Pony Canyon. My wife looked up this fact. I was like, are you sure that's true? Because that sounds mental. And supposedly it is. So maybe somebody listening to this will tell me that's nonsense. But supposedly she has 5 platinum albums which were signed, which she got a deal in Japan because Commando was massive over there. That all sounds mental, but supposedly true. And yeah, that's it. I've got all these facts and they're all exactly the same as yours. We've already done Legacy. So soundtrack next. Obviously, this has a very, very unique soundtrack. The score in particular, I mean, it has those steel drums, sexy saxophone, jazz flute. It's by James Horner. Another film he uses almost the exact same score is, funny enough, 48 Hours. Yeah. Another film which has Sully. There's a scene where David Patrick Kelly runs down the street and it's playing the Commando music, essentially. but it's in 40 hours.
And
It's
that
all
was
very-
1982, 48 hours, so that was well before this film.
Yeah. So this film has a really bonkers score, a very unique. And this guy, he's got form. This guy isn't just a guy who showed up with steel drums and like, I'm going to have a bash at this. He did most of the great Star Trek films. He scored Wrath of Khan, The Undiscovered Country, Search for Spock. He also, funny enough, I was watching this, and it was the scene in the warehouse when all the plane stuff is going on. And I was like, all of a sudden, the score really changes tone when they're sneaking around. And I said to my wife, I was like, God, this almost sounds like Aliens. Yeah. And it turns out he actually did the score for Aliens.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. And Field of Dreams, which feels like it has no connection to this whatsoever. But yeah, despite, excuse me, James Horner having something of a storied career, with a bunch of high-profile 80s movies, it's this film which I think stands out. Like, I always remember the score to this film with its unique steel drum, sexy jazz flute sound. There's nothing else quite like it, I don't think. And it's all signed off with an absolute belter of an end credit song. The Power Station doing "We Fight for Love," which is, I'm not sure if it works for this film, but it works for the times. Like, it works for the decades. Yeah. It just feels like a great end credit song for an 80s action film. Most people, I'm not sure if they'd heard The Power Station. If you heard Some Like It Hot, is another song indeed. It's one of those songs, you'd hear it and go, oh, I know that. But yeah, I think for the most part, I just know them for this. And it's an absolute belter.
Totally agree, mate. I absolutely love the score for this. The steel drums randomly work so well. It's
Yeah, I'm not sure why they work, because it gives it a kind of Caribbean vibe almost. But like, you just can't help it. It's like, you are
going to an island in the middle of, I guess, the Pacific.
It'd be the Pacific, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't want to sound dumb then, but
no, it's the Pacific.
It's like what is it? I'm Ron Burgundy.
I'm Ron Burgundy. Yeah, I'm not sure if it should work when they're driving around kind of California and you've got the steel drum, saxophone, jazz flute medley going on. But for some reason, it totally works. And again, just another example of something in this film where if you described that to someone or you played that song on its own and said, we're going to use this in an 80s action film, you'd be like, are you out of your mind? It's like, why would you use that? But you put it together and like everything else, you're like, yep, it works.
Yeah,
it works.
Really unreal. So before we move on to next, the score, and recommendations to others, is video games.
Yeah, well, this is a weird one because despite most games from the 80s being basically, loosely based on this, there was no official Commando game designed ever. There was a Japanese arcade shooter released the same year, funny enough, called Commando in the West. And Senjo no Okami in Japan, which basically means Wolf of the Battlefield in Japan. So that was released the same year, but had nothing to do with it. So it's quite a bizarre one because there was a very poor, I think it was an Amstrad game, which stole the look of basically stole the Commando Arnie look. You think of him on the poster? It's like that, but he's holding scuba gear. Like, there's a long line of video games from the 80s where they steal basically just character art from movies. The most famous being Contra, which steals somehow Predator, Rambo, and Aliens, all on just the cover art. You look at the cover art for Contra on the NES, it's clearly Arnie from Predator, but they've just changed his face slightly. It's Sly Stallone from Rambo 2, and it's definitely the Queen Alien on the back. But this is a pretty egregious example. What was the name? It was called Navy Moves, and it was from the Amstrad. Rubbish game, very not well known at all, but it's totally a Commando ripoff on the cover art. It's absolutely outrageous. But without there actually being one, I guess the idea is like, what would you want if you were going to make a Commando video game now? I mean, there's plenty of options for sure, but
it is. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the ending of this definitely suits a first person, but it's really weird because could you have a first person like running through the streets of LA or wherever they are at that point?
Well, yeah, I would kind of like double down on the action rather than the narrative. What I was thinking is like almost like an arcade shooter, but I was thinking maybe like Platinum Games could do it because they have that kind of knack of combining top tier action, but with like a ludicrous premise, which is very much what this movie is. So I'm thinking something like that. I mean, I did think maybe like the Coalition might make it, the guys who make Gears of War, But Gears of War is all about using cover. And as we know from this film, John Matrix does not use cover. So that would actually be a terrible idea. So I was thinking either you would do like a throwback top-down shooter, like a legit sprite-based 80s shooter, or if you could do something a bit more modern, I would go with Platinum Games and have like one which combines shooting, hand-to-hand combat, the full works, and kind of has a bit of story. But yeah, we're not gonna keep you want to leave that in the background because, like this film, the story isn't particularly important. It's all about the action.
Because it's like a generic action type. I can't really think of something that I'd want to see video game wise because we've seen all things like this before. So I'll double down on that and say I agree with you.
Well, the thing is, it's one of those films like Rambo. Like when you see video games based on Rambo, there's a reason that they use it for like light gun games. Like, yeah, sure, there's a story to Rambo, but that's not what you remember. You just remember the iconic look of Rambo. You remember him with the gun, with the bow and arrow, all that jazz. And it's the same with Commando. If you have a video game, it could be very much, I'm thinking like a NES game, when you have like a little bit of text. It's like, because let's be clear, the plot to this is ostensibly John Wick, only his daughter gets stolen instead of the dog getting killed.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could have that in an opening scroll NES game. John Matrix has come out of retirement because bad guys stole his daughter. Level 1 begin. Yeah. And he's just off to the fucking races. So yeah, either ridiculous top-down arcade shooter or, Platinum if you want to rub some stamp on that, I guess. But yeah, I think that's what we'll go with. Cool. But yeah, in terms of scores and ratings, I think this is one of the trickier ones, actually. Because as I said, I don't think this is an objectively good film, but it's still a great film.
Let's go with the premise that we set last week. I mean, 25 episodes in, we set a premise finally for this, which is not heart, but head.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right, so
if you were reviewing this for a magazine, there's the two questions. You can go with your heart if you're telling other people, because that's like a personal opinion thing, like, who your friends are. Would you tell a stranger in the street in 2021 to go and watch Commando? But if I was reviewing this, I feel like I would have, I'm going to go and say, I still think it's a 4-star film. No. It's not a good film in the traditional sense, but there's no getting around the fact that despite its issues, despite its flaws, it just works. It just works. It's super fun. It's, there are better made films than this. I mean, most films are better made than this, let's be clear, but very few are as fun as this. So do I think it's a good film? Yeah, 4 stars. I don't think it's quite a masterpiece, but in terms of whether I would encourage other people to go and see it, I feel pretty confident. Even my friends who aren't necessarily massive movie fans, I think this is a fun film. It clips along, 90 minutes long. It's Arnie being fucking awesome. All these people get shot. I think most people could enjoy it on one level or another. Like, even if you are laughing along with it, essentially, I think that's a fun way to watch this film. It's stupid, for sure. It's got one-liners every 2 minutes, but they're all great. So it's no problem. How about you?
No, like you, I think it's a 4-star film. It works so well. It's fun to watch. It's even, as we pointed out, the ridiculousness of some of the lines, the ridiculousness of the stunts or anything like that. I mean, you can just, it's the time, it's the storytelling, it's everything. It's fun to watch. And it's fun. It's like you forgive it. It's not mistakes, but you forgive it. It's, inconsistency,
rough edges,
inconsistencies, things like that, and it's so enjoyable to watch. But it's definitely 4-star, and it was always going to be with Commando. Whether heart or head rules, it was always going to be.
I think so. Well, I think when you watch it, it's a step. You watch it now, and basically it's every 80s action movie cliche trope all rolled into one, all turned up to 11, and all on screen at once.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's ridiculous. But it's so ridiculous that it kind of comes out the other side and it's just super fun again. So yeah, totally.
Would I recommend it to others? Absolutely. Like you, I would. But I don't know anyone who actually hasn't seen this film. But I would recommend it to others.
And you can tell it, even when we've posted this, we were going to do this film on Facebook, Instagram and stuff, is that people who have got back, who aren't what I would call necessarily massive movie people, but everyone comes back with the same thing. They love Commando. Yeah. They love Commando. And it just comes back to the idea that it's just fun. And it just has all those memorable scenes. Every scene is offset with a memorable death, a memorable quip. It's just, it just works. Yeah. From start to finish, it just does not stop. Great film.
So, that was Commando. The only other thing to do now, I believe, I usually miss some sections, but I haven't missed anything this week.
No, we're good. We're good.
Literally just now to let you know what we're watching next week.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Yeah. We're going to go through another Jones Through Time.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Yeah,
this should be good. I won't give my opinion on that film, but I watched Bill and Ted Face the Music not too long ago.
Yeah.
And that inspired me, should we say, to go back and watch the original film. And yeah, these are interesting films. Again, they do fall under the category of, are they objectively good? Not so sure, but they're loads of fun. And I'm looking forward to watching it and, of course, talking about it. But it should be great.
Yeah, really looking forward to watching this again. It was a big film for me again when I was growing up. So totally. I am really looking forward to revisiting it. So I think we'll leave it there, mate.
Awesome.
We will meet up again for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure next week.
Cheers. Thanks for listening, guys. Oh, yeah, and before I forget, because I always forget, here's Rob telling you where you can actually find us.
Yeah, so we're currently on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Hey You Guys 80s or at Hey You Guys 80s. And we're also on email at heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any emails, any recommendations, or any reviews you have. But whilst we're on about that, wherever you get your podcasts, please also smash the subscribe button. Yes, I said smash.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Leave us a review and leave us some 5-star ratings as well. But make sure they're 5-star ratings.
Yeah. We're not interested in 1-star, 5-star. If it's not going to be 5-star, don't go smashing anything. Just leave your opinion to yourself. 5-star ratings only. But yeah, if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next week.
Hey, you